Plants have evolved a variety of defense mechanisms to protect themselves against pests and diseases. These mechanisms are crucial for the survival and health of plants in their natural environment. One of the first lines of defense is the presence of physical barriers. For example, the thick waxy cuticle on the surface of leaves acts as a barrier to prevent pests from penetrating into the plant tissues. Additionally, some plants have thorns, spines, or hairs that deter herbivores from feeding on them. Moving on to chemical defenses, plants produce a wide array of secondary metabolites such as alkaloids, terpenoids, and phenolics that have toxic or deterrent effects on pests. These chemicals can make the plant unpalatable or even harmful to potential attackers. Another fascinating aspect of plant defense is induced resistance. When plants are exposed to certain pests or pathogens, they can activate their defense mechanisms, making them more resistant to future attacks. This priming effect allows plants to respond more rapidly and effectively to subsequent threats. Genetic resistance is another important defense mechanism in plants. Some plant species have evolved specific genes that confer resistance to certain pests or diseases. Plant breeders often exploit these genetic traits to develop resistant crop varieties. Furthermore, plants engage in complex interactions with beneficial organisms, such as predatory insects, parasitic wasps, and symbiotic fungi. These beneficial organisms can help control pest populations and enhance plant health. Despite these defense mechanisms, plants still face challenges from rapidly evolving pests and diseases. Climate change and globalization have also contributed to the spread of new threats to plant health. As we continue to study plant defense mechanisms, there is a need to explore novel strategies for sustainable pest and disease management in agriculture and natural ecosystems. Physical barriers are an essential defense mechanism employed by plants to protect themselves against pests and diseases. One of the most prominent physical barriers is the cuticle, a waxy layer that covers the outer surface of leaves and stems. This cuticle acts as a waterproof barrier, reducing water loss and preventing pathogens from entering the plant tissues. In addition to the cuticle, some plants have evolved thorns, spines, or prickles as physical deterrents against herbivores. These structures not only make it difficult for animals to feed on the plants, but also serve as a protective shield. Interestingly, some plants have developed trichomes, which are tiny hair-like structures on their surfaces. Trichomes can act as a physical barrier by trapping insects or creating a slippery surface that makes it challenging for pests to move around. Furthermore, certain plants have specialized structures such as lenticels, which are small pores on stems that allow for gas exchange while minimizing the entry of pathogens. Overall, physical barriers play a crucial role in plant defense by providing a first line of protection against external threats. Understanding the diverse strategies that plants have evolved to create physical barriers can inspire innovative approaches for enhancing crop protection and sustainable agriculture. Plants have developed a fascinating array of chemical defenses to protect themselves against pests and diseases. These chemical compounds are produced by plants as part of their natural defense mechanisms and play a crucial role in deterring herbivores, pathogens, and other potential threats. One of the most well-known groups of chemical defenses in plants is secondary metabolites. These compounds are not directly involved in the plant's growth or development, but serve as potent deterrents or toxins against pests. Alkaloids, for example, are nitrogen-containing compounds that can have a wide range of effects on herbivores, from inducing vomiting to causing paralysis. Some alkaloids, such as nicotine in tobacco plants, act as potent neurotoxins that deter insects from feeding. Terpenoids are another group of secondary metabolites that contribute to plant defense. These compounds give plants their characteristic scents and flavors and can have antimicrobial, insecticidal, or repellent properties. For instance, essential oils rich in terpenoids, such as those found in mint or lavender, can repel insects and inhibit the growth of pathogens. Phenolic compounds are yet another important class of chemical defenses in plants. These compounds include tannins, flavonoids, and lignin, which can have antioxidant, antimicrobial, and anti-herbivore properties. Tannins, for example, can bind to proteins in the digestive systems of herbivores, making them less digestible and potentially toxic. Flavonoids, on the other hand, can act as signaling molecules to attract beneficial insects or as UV protectants to shield plants from environmental stress. Plants also produce volatile organic compounds, VOCs, as part of their chemical defense arsenal. These compounds are released into the air and can serve as signals to neighboring plants, warning them of impending threats. Some VOCs can attract predators of herbivores, creating a natural enemy-free space for the plant. Additionally, some plants have evolved the ability to produce cyanogenic glycosides, which are compounds that release toxic cyanide when damaged. This chemical defense mechanism acts as a potent deterrent against herbivores and pathogens. Interestingly, some plants have developed the ability to produce allelochemicals, which are chemicals that can inhibit the growth of competing plants. These allelochemicals give the producing plant a competitive advantage by reducing the growth of neighboring plants. Overall, the diverse array of chemical defenses in plants showcases the remarkable adaptability and resilience of these organisms in the face of environmental challenges. By understanding the intricate mechanisms behind plant chemical defenses, we can harness this knowledge to develop sustainable strategies for pest and disease management in agriculture and conservation. Induced resistance is a fascinating defense mechanism employed by plants to enhance their ability to ward off pests and diseases. Unlike constitutive defenses, which are always present, induced resistance is activated in response to specific threats, such as insect herbivory or pathogen attack. One of the key features of induced resistance is priming, where the plant's defense responses are heightened upon subsequent exposure to the same threat. This priming effect allows plants to mount a faster and more effective defense, ultimately increasing their chances of survival. Interestingly, induced resistance can be triggered by various signals, including damage-associated molecular patterns, DAMPs, released by herbivores or pathogen-derived molecules such as elicitors. These signals are recognized by the plant's immune system, leading to the activation of defense pathways. One well-studied example of induced resistance is systemic acquired resistance, SAR, which involves the production of antimicrobial compounds throughout the plant in response to localized infection. SAR not only protects the infected area but also confers resistance to distant parts of the plant, providing a broad-spectrum defense against pathogens. Another form of induced resistance is induced systemic resistance, ISR, which involves the activation of defense mechanisms in response to beneficial microbes in the rhizosphere. These beneficial microbes can prime the plant's immune system, making it more resistant to pathogens. Induced resistance is not only limited to direct interactions with pests and pathogens, but can also be induced by environmental factors such as light, temperature, and nutrient availability. For example, exposure to certain wavelengths of light or changes in temperature can trigger defense responses in plants, preparing them for potential threats. Understanding the mechanisms behind induced resistance is crucial for developing sustainable strategies for pest and disease management in agriculture. By harnessing the power of induced resistance, we can reduce the reliance on chemical pesticides and promote the health and resilience of plants in natural and agricultural ecosystems. Genetic resistance is a powerful defense mechanism that plants have evolved to combat pests and diseases. Unlike induced or chemical defenses, genetic resistance is inherent in the plant's genetic makeup and provides long-lasting protection against specific threats. One of the most fascinating aspects of genetic resistance is the presence of resistance genes, which encode proteins that recognize and respond to pathogens. These resistance genes can confer immunity or resistance to certain pests or diseases, preventing them from causing harm to the plant. Plant breeders often exploit these resistance genes to develop crop varieties with enhanced resistance to common pests and diseases. For example, the gene PITA in rice confers resistance to the devastating rice blast fungus, while the gene R-gene in tomatoes provides resistance to bacterial speck disease. Interestingly, some plants have evolved a phenomenon known as gene-for-gene resistance, where a specific resistance gene in the plant matches a corresponding virulence gene in the pathogen. This recognition triggers a rapid and robust defense response in the plant, leading to the activation of defense mechanisms. Genetic resistance is not limited to pathogens, but can also extend to insect pests. Plants can produce toxins or repellents that deter insect feeding, or they can have physical traits such as thick cuticles or tough cell walls that make them less susceptible to insect damage. Furthermore, genetic resistance is heritable, meaning that resistant traits can be passed down from one generation to the next. This allows plants to adapt to changing environmental conditions and evolving pest and disease pressures over time. Despite the benefits of genetic resistance, pests and pathogens can evolve to overcome plant defenses, leading to the breakdown of resistance. This phenomenon, known as resistance breakdown, underscores the importance of deploying diverse resistance mechanisms and practicing integrated pest management strategies. By understanding the genetic basis of plant resistance and leveraging modern biotechnological tools such as gene editing and marker-assisted selection, we can accelerate the development of resilient crop varieties that can withstand current and future pest and disease challenges. Plants engage in intricate interactions with beneficial organisms that play a crucial role in enhancing plant health and defense mechanisms. One fascinating example of such interactions is the relationship between plants and mycorrhizal fungi. These fungi form symbiotic associations with plant roots, providing nutrients such as phosphorus and enhancing the plant's ability to absorb water. In return, the plant supplies the fungi with sugars produced through photosynthesis. This mutualistic relationship benefits both parties and contributes to the overall health and resilience of the plant. Another intriguing interaction is the role of predatory insects in controlling pest populations. Plants can release volatile compounds that attract predatory insects, such as ladybugs or parasitic wasps, which feed on herbivorous pests. By attracting these natural enemies, plants can effectively reduce pest damage without the need for chemical pesticides. Additionally, some plants form partnerships with nitrogen-fixing bacteria, such as rhizobium, that convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form that plants can use for growth. This symbiotic relationship allows plants to thrive in nitrogen-deficient soils and reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers. Furthermore, certain plants host beneficial microbes in their rhizosphere, which can enhance nutrient uptake, suppress pathogens, and stimulate plant growth. These beneficial interactions highlight the intricate web of relationships that exist in natural ecosystems and underscore the importance of biodiversity in promoting plant health and resilience. Despite the effectiveness of plant defense mechanisms, there are several challenges and limitations that plants face in their battle against pests and diseases. One major challenge is the rapid evolution of pests and pathogens, which can develop resistance to plant defenses over time. This evolutionary arms race can lead to the breakdown of resistance traits in plants, rendering them vulnerable to attack. Additionally, climate change poses a significant threat to plant health, as rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns can create favorable conditions for pests and diseases to thrive. Globalization has also facilitated the spread of invasive species and novel pathogens, further complicating plant protection efforts. Furthermore, the use of chemical pesticides can have unintended consequences, such as harming beneficial organisms and polluting the environment. Balancing the need for effective pest and disease management with environmental sustainability is a key challenge facing agriculture. Moreover, limited genetic diversity in crop plants can constrain the availability of resistant traits, making it difficult to combat emerging threats. Addressing these challenges requires a holistic approach that integrates diverse strategies, from breeding for resistance to promoting natural enemies of pests to ensure the long-term health and productivity of plants. Future research in plant defense mechanisms should focus on harnessing the power of plant-microbe interactions for sustainable pest and disease management. Exploring the potential of microbiomes in enhancing plant resilience and developing biocontrol agents can offer novel solutions. Additionally, leveraging cutting-edge technologies such as CRISPR-Cas9 for targeted gene editing to enhance plant resistance traits holds promise. Understanding the intricate signaling pathways involved in induced resistance and exploring the role of epigenetic modifications in plant defense can provide valuable insights. Collaborative research efforts that integrate multidisciplinary approaches will be essential to address emerging challenges in plant protection and promote ecological balance in agricultural systems.